Alright, you all. It is time for some Super Mario Odyssey World Peace category run by ddangers and, of course, Kirby along as the commentator, co-commentator along the run. So let's get ready for some Mario Odyssey, shall we?
All right. What's poppin', gamers? How's it going out there in the Twitch lands? My name is ddangers. I've got some Super Mario Odyssey for you coming your way. Joining me on commentary is my good friend Kerbis54. Kerbis, how's it going?
Pretty good. What's up, guys?
And yeah, we're gonna do some Super Mario Odyssey today. I'm not showing you the most popular category, that being the any percent category, but we are going to be doing a route that's similar and, in my opinion, quite a bit more fun and a little bit inclusive of some stuff in the game. So I think it's going to be a very nice little showcase of what Super Mario Odyssey has to offer. And I think we can get started right away here. So I guess I'll go on three. So 3, 2, 1, go. Now, Kerbis, maybe tell us a little bit about what makes World Peace the category that it is.
Yeah, so like Dangers was saying, it's similar to any percent. There's actually a lot of kingdoms that we'll run through in this run that are exactly the same as any percent. But what World Peace is all about is there's an achievement in the game itself called Achieve World Peace that you can get at the end of the game. And basically all you have to do to get that achievement is to complete all the story moons, or at least complete the last story moon in every kingdom in the game. So the game kind of calls beating all the story in a given kingdom achieving peace. So Danger's going to do that in every kingdom, as opposed to any percent, which only does it in a handful of kingdoms.
Yeah, a lot of the shorter kingdoms, it kind of is required to complete the World Peace section. But in a lot of the longer ones, any percent is going to go about kind of cutting through, getting the absolute fastest moons, and then leaving right away, leaving the kingdom in complete disarray. Very disrespectful, in my opinion. So we're going to do things right with this run.
Yeah, a lot of the story moons wind up just being too slow for any percent because there's a lot of cutscenes and stuff attached to them. So any percent runs opt for much quicker moons. But yeah, we're going to see all the fun stuff, all the stuff that you would expect to see in a casual playthrough, but we're going to do it speedily.
Exactly.
And also another thing about World Peace is it's actually, you would think it wouldn't be like as glitch heavy as any percent because you're doing like the intended story stuff, but it's actually more glitch intensive because there's going to be some story stuff that can be skipped.
It just so happens that a lot of the glitches that we have discovered in this game don't really have a purpose in any percent because you avoid some of the areas that use them. But in World Peace, because we are accessing a lot more areas of the game, we do kind of utilize some of these tricks to our advantage. And some of them are really cool. Some of them cut out minutes upon minutes of story content, which is very convenient because that story content can be kind of boring sometimes. But at the same time, this category in itself is actually pretty fast. It seems like everything goes pretty fast because even though we do have to go out of the way for a lot of story moons, the moons that are remaining are basically the absolute fastest ones we can get. So anything that isn't story content is going to seem extremely fast. Now I'm about to do first moon skip here.
It's actually the first story moon that you're supposed to get in the game, but he's going to skip it right away.
Yeah, there is a distinction between an all-story moons run and a World Peace run. All-story moons, of course, is pretty self-explanatory, but in World Peace, all we need is the final multi-moon in every kingdom, which means that we can skip some of the slow and boring stuff.
And it might not have been entirely obvious what he did there, but when he wall-kicked and kind of dove up onto that ledge out of the water, there's actually an invisible wall there that's supposed to prevent you from jumping over there, but for whatever reason you kind of slip underneath it, So that's what he did, basically.
And there are a couple different versions of this game. 1.0 just so happens to be the original version of the game, and it just so happens to have a couple glitches that access things a little bit quicker. But 1.2 can actually get under that indivisible wall as well, but when you get up to the boss fight, it just doesn't trigger. And that's part of why 1.0 is the optimal one for this category, as well as some other fast categories like any percent.
Yeah, that was like a day one patch of this game that they basically didn't allow you to start this boss fight unless you collected that first story moon. So it became one of the ones that you weren't able to skip.
Yeah. Playing on 1.0 allows a lot of these other sequence breaks to be quite a bit easier to perform as well. So in my opinion, one of the more fun versions to run this particular category on would be 1.0.
And it definitely seems like Nintendo was conscious of your ability to skip certain story moons, and they kind of hard-coded it in to not allow the next story moon to be collected unless you collected the first one. But some kingdoms, they just, I guess, kind of underestimated us, underestimated the gamers, and they just didn't account for that. So some of them are entirely skippable. And
now a little bit of a tricky thing I just did there is one of the major kind of glitches that we use in this game that allows and facilitates for some major skips is what we like to call moon clipping. Basically, when you grab a moon, it changes the phase of the game, and Mario doesn't become part of like the physical realm. Basically, he also kind of warps in a direction, usually upwards, so you can kind of manipulate that to your advantage in a situation like that, to skip having to leave the alcove and just clipping directly up and back in bounds.
Yeah, moons have a weird property of sort of pushing you out of bounds if they're right next to a wall or a ceiling, so he kind of used that to his advantage with a well-timed cap throw to just push himself entirely out of bounds. And that's a more minor glitch that only saves probably a couple seconds, but
yeah, you will see that moon skip or that moon clip application happening a couple times in this run, with varying levels of time save ability. But Sand Kingdom here, this is the first kind of large kingdom in the run, and this is the first one that kind of diverts away from the any percent route entirely. The first two kingdoms we kind of had to achieve world peace in order to continue, but this one you don't. So we are going to have to go out of our way to achieve world peace here.
Yeah, and this is where the route starts to differentiate itself heavily from any percent. So normally I'll kind of explain what you're supposed to do in Sand Kingdom to achieve peace. Normally you would go, you can kind of see this tower off in the distance on Danger's screen. Normally you would have to climb that tower, there's a little 2D section to go through, and there's a moon up top of there, and that's the first story moon of the kingdom. And then it kind of opens up the little island off to the west, and there's some moon shards you gotta collect. And then once you collect all those moon shards, it opens up a pyramid door, and you can't really see the pyramid yet, but there's a pyramid sitting at the back of the kingdom. And yeah, so collecting those first two story moons would open up the pyramid door. But you can also just clip through the pyramid door, and that's what Danger's is gonna do. So he can entirely skip those first two story moons. They're rather time-consuming moons to collect, and also with the cutscenes attached to them, this winds up saving at least a minute, maybe two.
And we're through just like that. So you can achieve this, like I mentioned, there's a couple different versions of the game. You can achieve that clip on 1.2, but the setup is a little bit more precise and a little bit finickier to set up. Whereas in 1.0, I feel like they didn't really have a full grasp on how that glitch worked yet at Nintendo, so it's extremely easy to just slip right through the wall.
Yeah, and funnily enough, you might have noticed when he walked up to the wall, there's a little text box of Cappy trying to talk to you. And what he's saying there is something along the lines of, I don't think you can brute force your way through there, but...
I beg to differ, Cappy.
Joke's on you, Nintendo. That tells me that they think they outsmarted us, but they didn't.
Better luck next time.
They got cocky.
And so we're able to skip those first 2 story moons, but unfortunately, in order to unlock the final boss of Sand Kingdom, we do have to initiate this fight up here, which is with Harriet, the second Brule that we encounter. And yeah, she just kind of has a ponytail, throws bombs at us. Very intimidating, but really, a lot of these boss fights in this game are kind of like, they're very predictable, but there's a lot of little tips and tricks you can kind of do to make them go a lot faster.
Yeah, so each of these phases, you see her kind of hopping around. Dangers is manipulating how many times she hops around just by where he stands. So by standing like all the way up against the wall, it basically forces her to only hop twice as opposed to like 3, 4, 5 times. I think the first phase with bad positioning, it can be as many as 8.
Yeah, and you hate to see that. Now, perhaps one of my favorite parts of this entire run is coming up here. So we've entered the second phase of Sand Kingdom, being this kind of nighttime portion. The hole in the desert opens up, the pyramid rises into the sky, and in that hole in the desert is where we're going to find the final challenge, the reason that all of Sand Kingdom is frozen over. And now, like I said, a lot of the fastest moons in any percent are kept, and some of the slowest ones are taken out. And if you do know anything about the any percent route, you'll know that we missed quite a few fast moons. So the reason that I grabbed that checkpoint earlier with a little bit of bullet bill manipulation is so that we can go there directly and get some of those fast moons now. And we're going to do a little bit of a kind of a bullet bill juggling situation here. I'm going to be using bullet bills to the best of their ability, kind of flopping them around, doing all sorts of crazy stuff, trying to get all the fastest moons as well as set myself up in a way that I can leave this place as fast as possible as well. There we go. So, grabbing that last moon, and then we're going to use this bullet bill's speed to kind of blast us to the next area.
And these guys, they're called chinchos, and they really like to get in your way and pop up in random places. So we tried to route it so that we just avoided them as much as possible.
Yeah, sometimes they still get in your way, kind of near the end there you saw, but not a big deal. You can kind of just dive over them.
That's like one of the big benefits of using that bullet bill to fly as far as possible towards that moon you collected. If you're in the air, they can't touch you.
Part of the reason that Sand Kingdom is probably my favorite in World Peace, one of my favorites anyway, is just the way that we use bullet bills so creatively in this kingdom. There's the dram strat that you saw. We didn't really go over it, but that was when I jumped into that alcove earlier on, and then used the capture warp, throwing my cap up in the air and getting the moon, and then using Cappy to kind of warp back up to the bullet bill that was waiting for me up top. Using the bullet bill's speed to my advantage, juggling them around. Like, we use bullet bills in every conceivable way in this kingdom, and it's really fun to do.
So Sand is one of the bigger kingdoms, and all the big kingdoms, they typically have like 2 bosses, or at least 2 big story events. So this is the second one, and we're gonna make this guy punch himself in the face, as Nintendo likes to do. I love these kind of bosses for some reason.
Yeah, this is the classic Bongo Bongo boss, you could say. The typical floating face and hands. Of course, Super Mario Odyssey does put a little bit of a twist on it with the whole capture strategy, which of course I'm going to use to my advantage here.
In a lot of these fights, they might kind of look auto-scrollery, and they are in a sense, but there's little things that you might not notice that speed up the fight. Like, for instance, Dangers is rolling all the way to the other end of the arena here, rather than just standing in one spot. And that's to get those fists behind Mario as soon as possible, because that's the point where Knuckle Tech here starts going back towards the center of the arena. So the faster you get those hands behind you, the faster you can move on to the next phase.
Looks like Schultzar, who is a very, very excellent human being, contributor to a lot of Super Mario Odyssey streamers, and just an all-around fantastic person. I love you, Schultzar. Looks like he just dropped a giant donation bomb on this here marathon. GG's to Schultzar. Thank you so much for your contributions to Child's Play. And with that, Sand Kingdom is done. So yeah, like Kerbis said, a lot of these bosses do appear kind of auto-scrollery, and at a surface level they kind of are, but yeah, there's almost everything that we can do does kind of optimize the fight in a little bit of a way. And sometimes it just looks like flare, like you mentioned, Kerbis, like rolling in between the fists. That kind of just looks like a flary thing to do, but at the same time it does save 1 second per cycle, so it actually is doing something.
Yeah, all the little things you can do on these fights that add up. Even the most auto-scroller of fights in this game, it wouldn't surprise me if like a high-level runner was saving like 5 seconds compared to like someone who knew how the boss worked and knew how to fight it fast but didn't know all these little quirks about them. There's good time saved to be had, for sure.
Now, the next kingdom we're going into is Lake Kingdom. Lake Kingdom doesn't really separate itself much from the 80% route. Basically, going to be finishing on one of the brutal fights. 80% recently has come up with an optimization that skips having to do the Rango fight, but it is a very minor one. So, if you have watched Super Mario Odyssey runs before, this will probably look very familiar to you.
Yeah, the route that skips the Rango fight in 80% is really only a top-level kind of thing, like top 10 runner kind of strat.
Yeah.
Most people still just do the World Peace route, essentially.
Yeah. But this is a pretty quick kingdom, very compact, very small place.
And this is actually a route that I think has, until Lake Clip happened, this was a route that was basically in place since the first couple of weeks of the game being released. It's like one of the kingdoms that just never changes.
Yeah, this one is Seaside, I think.
Yeah, Seaside's another one for 80% that has never really changed too much. But I think it's mostly a product of it being so small, so there's not that many available moons that you have to route.
Exactly.
These ones are just the obvious fast choices.
Now, some kind of crazy ideas have been being thrown around by the community recently about using the lake clip itself to actually make world peace faster, but nobody's really brave enough to try it yet, unfortunately. But the main component, of course, with world peace is achieving peace in every kingdom, and that requires the multi-moon at the end, so even if this route were to be faster, it would be probably harder to set up and maybe not save nearly as much time.
Yeah, so Lake Kingdom is very small, like we said, so that's actually the only story event in the kingdom, is that Rango fight. That's how like most of the small kingdoms work. They'll just have a fight with a brutal, and then the big kingdoms will have a brutal fight and then another unique boss that is kind of more fitting to the kingdom's theme as the final boss of the kingdom.
And just like that, Lake is done. Moving on to Wooded Kingdom, which in my opinion is one of the scariest of the run. I'm pretty sure that goes for basically any category of this game. It's a very vertical kingdom, lots of opportunities to fall to your death, lose lots of time, but it's also a very fun kingdom to just kind of move around in, so.
Yeah, I think it definitely has one of the more interesting routes as far as just the strats you use.
Certainly.
To get around the kingdom. There's some really cool stuff you do. And one of which will be another one of those moon clips like you saw in Cascade Kingdom. This one's going to save a little bit more time. So there's normally a gate that you would pull a lever and then a little cutscene would play to open the gate, and then you could go through it to get to the main portion of the kingdom, basically. But Dangers will try to skip that gate. The thing about moon clips is they're once and done. If you try it once and mess it up, you can't really try it again because the moon's gone.
So here it is here. I'm gonna go through the wall, set myself up on this little platform here, do a long jump, and then kind of maneuver my way up to this higher roof here, and through basically all of that nonsense, pulling the lever and all of that. Any percent uses this clip as well, but they actually go and change their route dramatically and get some different moons. And in any percent, it saves a drastic amount of time, but it does save about 7 to 8 seconds here, so it's not worth skipping on for sure, and doesn't cost anything to try either.
And the only reason you don't do a similar thing to any percent in World Peace is because we're going to go up to that section later on, after we do the first couple story segments, and basically finish off the kingdom there. So since we're going there later anyways, there's not much point to going out of our way with Nutclip to take a couple moons up there like any percent does. So another cool little trick is just getting some momentum to triple jump off of this fence.
That's what we call flower road skip. There is a flower road that the game wants you to spawn there to just be to just get across this little gorge, but of course that's a little bit slow, so we're gonna skip on that.
Also skip this other flower road here, but this one's very easy to do, so we don't really give it a name. You can kind of just... Oh, actually, I forgot. We're doing tower skip. Yeah, so there are moons inside that tower that are kind of fast, but they're like just barely too slow for World Peace. So you could actually just jump on the little beams there to get up to the top of the tower and fight Spirit here without ever going inside.
And it looks like we got to our 3K donation goal for the marathon. So karaoke, Sonic R, gonna be happening. Let's go. GG's, boys.
It's gonna be hot.
So now, this is one of the bigger kingdoms, and like we mentioned before, some of the bigger kingdoms kind of are cut in half with a mini boss in the middle and a final boss kind of at the end. This is one of those kingdoms, so we beat Spirit, but we haven't saved the world here yet. So we kind of have to traverse our way back up to the very top of this kingdom in order to finish it off.
Yeah, and I've always liked this little segment of movement here. Just always felt really smooth to jump across all these walls and across this gap.
Making sure you get optimal height on all your jumps as well to get over that rock wall.
There's a lot of stuff that you just kind of feels like you just barely have enough at your disposal to get to certain places.
And luckily we do. Luckily we have just enough.
So I'm going to use those rocket flowers to carry all the way over to this little moon. And this is the last little story segment. I'm going to shoot off the 4 sections of this little propeller, shooting out bombs, and that will give Dangers 1 moon, and it will open up the secret flower field, which is where the second boss fight will take place.
And just like we mentioned before, this boss is probably one of the most kind of auto-scrollery of all of them. That being said, there are still things that we can kind of do to manipulate and make it go a little bit faster for us. And they all revolve around the capture associated with this fight, which we've affectionately referred to as Speedy Nut Boy.
Yeah, see, there's little things you can do to make the uproot walk faster or run faster, just depending on when you capture it. And if you don't get the fast speed right away, which I don't think Dangers did there, there's kind of a backup you can do, which is to use the little pad that it spawns on. And if you land on it, like if you jump and land on that spawning pad at the right spot, he'll kind of run off of it and just have this faster running speed.
Yeah, and you'll see now whenever I jump and land, he just continues running immediately. Whereas before, usually he kind of has a stagger in his jump. But
Yeah,
there's kind of a second phase to this as well. I'm gonna see if I can kind of initiate it. Doesn't look like I got it here. I'm gonna try for it on the third phase. But basically, you can also use that same spawning platform and jump off the side of it, and potentially get yourself some launching distance added to that as well. So we have Speedy Nut Boy already, but we need Supremely Speedy Nut Boy. And still just kind of working on trying to get that. Doesn't seem to be cooperating this time. We're not really sure how it works or why it works, but it does. Now you can see, as I'm jumping around, I'm actually jumping probably 2 times farther, which is a little bit faster as well.
Yeah, and I guess we can also explain the origin of why these boss fights are even happening. And if you know anything about the story of this game, it's that Bowser is coming around all these kingdoms, and he's trying to steal one thing from each kingdom in order to plan his wedding with Peach, which is definitely voluntary on her end and not forced at all.
Entirely consensual.
In this kingdom, that thing that Dangers just fought and destroyed was a machine that was supposed to suck up all the flowers from this secret flower field, and Bowser was going to use those flowers in his wedding. And in Sand Kingdom, there was a ring that Bowser wanted.
Yeah, and the reason that Knuckletech fought us is because he was mad the ring was missing and, you know, had to take it out on somebody. And so that somebody was us, unfortunately.
And I actually can't remember. Is there something in Lake Kingdom that Bowser took? Oh, the
Yes,
dress.
the dress.
The dress. That's right.
Cascade kind of just exists. Lost Kingdom kind of just exists.
Yeah, Cascade is just like kind of the intro kingdom. I don't think Bowser even ever goes there. And then, yeah, Lost Kingdom, which is going to be coming up next, you'll see, is basically just where Mario gets knocked down to after fighting Bowser for the first time, which is going to happen right now. I mean, whoops, we're going to Metro Kingdom.
Yep, that's what they said, right? That's the game. That's the game trying to trick us, I think.
I mean, they got me the first time.
Certainly.
They used the hype of Metro Kingdom to their advantage, because that's the one that they knew everybody would be excited for, so they teased you with it, and then threw this Bowser fight in here instead.
Yeah, they debated you a little bit.
So this is probably one of the more obvious fights as to like what the fast strats are. You can see Bowser trying to throw his hat and hit Mario with it, but if you run up at the right time and just throw your hat at the hat Bowser is throwing as he throws it, you'll just grab it immediately, rather than having to chase it around the arena here. And then you can just backflip over top of it on the last 2 phases to grab it right away as well. And then another thing is just kind of grabbing the hat and then jumping behind Bowser to punch him to the opposite end of the arena. That's like a micro optimization, probably saves a second or 2 over the course of the fight. It makes Bowser jump around less, basically, in between phases.
Yep. The further away he is, the less platforms he has to jump to kind of get to his final destination in between the phases, which helps speed things up a little bit.
Yeah, because he's always trying to jump at like as far away from Mario as possible, basically. So you can manipulate that in your favor.
Now, Lost is a bit of a weird kingdom because there are no real parameters for achieving peace here. There are no multi-moons to collect, there are no real bosses. So the idea with Lost Kingdom to achieve peace is to just leave. So we're gonna just do the any % route because it just so happens to be the fastest. We're gonna do a quick loop around and get the fastest moons and then get out of here.
Yeah, like the only notable thing you're doing here is avoiding the fight with Klepto. And for anyone who doesn't know how that works in any %, basically there's like a big trigger zone that will activate a fight with this bird that you see kind of in the top right of the screen. And he'll steal Cappy, and then you gotta go kind of ground pound these platforms to knock him down and get Cappy back. But if you just like go around the outside of the kingdom instead, you can avoid ever activating that fight, and then just run up next to Klepto, and he'll think that the fight is active, but he's just confused.
Yeah, we confuse him a little bit, which is great, because we don't really want him stealing Cappy, that's kind of slow.
And then once you activate the fight, just by like running past him, you have free reign to go wherever you want. So like the last couple moons you'll see Dangers collect normally would be in that trigger zone for the fight, but since he kind of confused them, that won't happen anymore.
Do a little scary jump there. Don't have Cappy because it's being stolen by that, what do they call it? Torpedo, I think?
Yeah, Torpedo.
So I have to do that triple jump without Cappy's assistance, which means that my jumps have to be perfectly lined up, otherwise I'll bonk and fall down. And get the Torpedo to blow up the cage, and then go under the bridge, and then we're done. Lost Kingdom, just like that.
Nice little trick to jump back out from underneath the bridge without dying. Something that, like a mechanic in this game, is you're allowed to cap bounce in the air one time, and then if you want to cap bounce again, you have to touch the ground. But the only other thing that gives you your cap bounce back is collecting a moon for the first time. So he kind of is able to collect that moon and then cap bounce out from underneath the bridge and up onto safe ground without dying. And now you finally, you were debated a little bit earlier, but now we actually get to go to Metro Kingdom.
And when we get here, it's dark and gloomy and stormy. You see that there's a Mecha Wiggler kind of invading the city and making it really kind of a nasty place to be. So our first order of business is to take care of that Mecha Wiggler.
And this is another one of those little sections of the run that is kind of forced upon you, much like doing the Cascade story stuff. You have to do this Wiggler fight in order to progress the game, because you can see, like, in the top left, the little circles. That's how many moons you need to leave the kingdom. And there's only, like, I think maybe 3 or 4 moons available in Night Metro here. So in order to get to the part of the kingdom where there's a lot more moons, you have to do this fight. But once Dangers gets into daytime Metro, then that's where things will start to look very different from any percent.
Yeah, it would be kind of handy if we could collect enough moons that we needed in the nighttime portion, because then we could probably skip on doing Mecha Wiggler or just like leaving him for last. But there just isn't enough moons in this nighttime portion, so we do have to go through, unfortunately.
And there's really only a couple instances in the game where they actually force you to collect story moons. Like Cascade is one, here is one, Bowser's Kingdom is another that is kind of more scripted. But outside of that, you can kind of do your own thing for the most part.
And that's what kind of makes this game a really great game as a speed game is, it's very approachable and there are some beginner routes out there. But as far as like achieving the game and playing it casually even, it's very kind of open to interpretation and there's a lot of different ways to go about it. When you compare it to something like Super Mario 64, for example, the 70-star idea, it has an element of creativity in a different way, where you're in a hub area and you can kind of pull the moons out that you need to combine up to 70, whereas this one requires you to collect a certain amount before you leave each kingdom, so you're kind of forced to play every kingdom, but you can kind of do them in whatever way you want.
And I'm really glad the game is set up the way that it is, because if the game forced you to do all the story moons just from the get-go, then, this category that Dangerous is running right now would essentially be any percent. But since they allowed you to complete the game without doing all the story stuff, it basically gives us 2 really cool categories to run instead of just the one.
Got kind of a nasty pattern with my Wiggler there, but we were able to finish him off just fine. So the idea there, there's very little RNG in this game and in a lot of other Mario games. A lot of it is just technical precision and kind of doing your inputs properly. But this is kind of one of the elements of RNG that does exist in this run. That second phase, the Wiggler can pop out in just about any pattern under the sun. Some patterns are a little bit more friendly than others, but the idea is that all patterns can essentially be 2-cycled if you can kind of counter them in a way. So we're lucky to get a 2-cycle there.
Yeah, so if you wouldn't have shot all those little glowing sections of the Wiggler in a short enough span of time, then the Wiggler would kind of go back into the wall and do his little shoot across the arena thing again. And it's a pretty big time loss, but yeah, thankfully he didn't have too terrible of a pattern. The really bad thing that happens is when the Wiggler coils up and just kind of like runs over itself and the hitboxes become really weird.
Yeah, this boss has some notoriously bad hitboxes, and another one later also does, that we'll get to at some point, I'm sure.
So now daytime Metro, now that the Wiggler has been exterminated, and it's daytime, it's sunny out, you know, the mayor, Pauline, is looking to celebrate. But she needs a band for his celebration. So, after collecting a few moons here, Danger's gonna go talk to Pauline. She'll explain the situation to Mario, and we'll do a little bit of rounding up the band, rounding up the squad to put on a cool festival.
And you know, we exterminated the Wiggler. The pest problem has been taken care of, but for some reason that doesn't actually constitute achieving quote-unquote world peace here. For some reason, this celebration is absolutely necessary to consider that the kingdom has been restored. So yeah, we need to go. Also, shoutouts to the ghosts in the band room. We need to go and collect all of the musicians and get this festival on the road.
Yeah, so that empty room that he spawned into, that's not supposed to happen. We're not really sure why it happens sometimes, but yeah, sometimes after collecting that first drummer moon, just nobody's there. Like, Pauline is supposed to be in there, and like a couple other people, but yeah, there's just no one in there for some reason sometimes. It's really bizarre.
Strange. Very
strange. Very spooky.
Yeah, you can see that Pauline and the burnt band members we've collected are actually there this time.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like every time. I think like the more musicians you collect, the more people are in there as well. But Pauline's always supposed to be in there, so very weird that happens.
Yeah, also noticed somebody in chat mentioning my date is set to 2024. Yes, that is a cheat prevention method. I'm currently in like a speedrunning league associated with this game in any percent, so in order to prevent cheating, what we do is we change the date on the Switch to a date that the organizer will give us about 5 minutes before the run. And I just didn't change it back. So this run is from the future, in case you were wondering.
Yeah, like, I'm not sure why Nintendo put the date on whenever you collect a moon, but it's actually a super convenient cheat prevention kind of thing.
Certainly. So we have 3 out of the 4. We're just going to gather some quick moons on top of this rooftop, and then take a scary jump across the buildings here. Oh, kind of disturbed the trumpeter a little bit. But he's our last member, and once we've gathered him, we can finally go to the festival, right?
Well, not quite.
Oh.
Pauline has one more problem for us to take care of. They can't have a festival with all those lights and sounds because the power is running a little low in New Donk City. So there's a little problem in the sewers that Mario's got to go take care of.
Yeah. Just a little bit of a pest infestation in the sewer. Now, this sewer portion does have, like, an entire kind of platforming section attached to it. But on my version, it's actually really easy to just do this. So we're going to just skip all of that, take care of the pest infestation, and grab the moon.
Yeah, there's like a whole little room you would have to go through with a lot of ways to die. So you can just clip through the wall. That's the second roll cancel clip of the run. There's going to be one more that is actually the most important.
Hopefully I won't even have to execute the roll cancel clip if I'm lucky, but yes, there is
that's
one
true.
more. There's one more clip coming up that is integral to kind of skipping a major portion of the game.
Yeah, so the last one you can actually moon clip or roll cancel clip to basically achieve the same thing. The moon clip is slightly faster, but like I said earlier, moon clips are once and done. If you mess it up, there's no backing it up, but the roll cancel clip serves as a backup, essentially, to guarantee that you're able to get to where you want to go. Yeah, now it's actually time for the festival.
Yep, so we did all of Pauline's errands. We went grocery shopping, we picked up the kids from school, took them to soccer practice, we made dinner. Now it's finally time to accomplish the festival.
So I want to see any dancing emote you have in chat. Get those sour pleases out.
Yep.
Get it poppin'.
Now, this festival can be done damageless in the most optimal way. Basically, there is an extremely fast way to do this initial portion. Everything in this entire section is on a cycle, and the cycle starts as soon as I enter the pipe. So in order for me to get the absolute best cycle that I need, I'm trying to kind of manipulate how fast I go through this beginning portion, because it all comes down to this room here. And if I've done it, if I've set it up correctly, I should be able to do this part damageless.
Yeah, it's just all these barrels basically are on a global cycle.
Alright, so I did take damage on the very last jump, but that's not a big deal. Pretty quick anyways.
And taking damage here compared to other parts of the game actually isn't that big of a deal, because normally you would lose time to taking damage. Like, there's a little stutter when Mario takes damage, so that's like a slight time loss, but the bigger time loss is when your health refills. And that happens anytime you collect a moon. And it's like almost 2.5 seconds to refill your health, just the animation of it. But when you collect a multi-moon, it kind of does that automatically without an animation. Like, when he lands at the end of this cutscene, he'll have full health again. So it's not as big of a time loss as taking damage in other parts of the run.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the most colorful and fun parts of the whole run right there, kicking off in the festival. And just like that, we finally achieved world peace in Metro, even though it seems like we did it about 8 minutes ago. Now we finally get to leave. Now we're entering the kind of the middle portion of what we like to call MSSL in the community, which is Metro, Snow, Seaside Luncheon. They're notoriously some of the hardest kingdoms to do in the Any Percent run, as well as in the World Peace run. And they are also drastically different in both of the categories, because World Peace does not get achieved in any of them in Any Percent, but it does have to be achieved in all of them in World Peace, of course. So we're gonna be diverting quite a bit from the fastest route and doing a couple of snazzy things on the side.
I mentioned that a lot of the bigger kingdoms, they'll have a brutal fight and then another story event at the end. This kingdom actually has that, but we're going to skip the brutal fight. This is one of the instances where you can skip story moons.
Yeah, we're going to skip a lot of things in this kingdom.
Yeah. So there's like, in the main portion of this room Dangers is in, there's 4 tunnels that you can go into, which if you're familiar with the 80% route, it goes into 2 or 3 of them, depending on the route you're doing. World Peace is going to avoid them entirely. And the moons at the end of these tunnels are technically all story moons. But, like, Danger's is going to try this moon clip here, and if he gets it, he'll basically pass the barrier that those rooms are supposed to open.
Unfortunately missed the moon clip, but we're going to go down here.
Yeah, that moon clip's pretty tricky. It's a lot harder than the other ones you saw him do. Yeah, this roll cancel clip serves as a backup. It achieves the same result, just with being a little slower. But
yeah,
basically, like, each of those 4 tunnel rooms is supposed to open up a panel in the floor. And it, like, once you open up all 4 of them, you'd be able to slide down into this room. But using that clip, you can just skip all of those rooms entirely. And one of those rooms has the Rango fight of this kingdom, and just like other menial stuff in the other tunnels. So yeah, this is going to be the Bound Bowl instead. Another kingdom where it's not even a boss fight, but you do have to do this to achieve peace in Snow Kingdom.
Yeah, not really sure why, to be honest. It doesn't really make very much sense, but that's fine. Now, usually when I do PB attempts on my own channel, we like to play a little game where we guess the final time that I'm going to get in the Bound Bowl. It does record to the 100th of a second. Good guesses are between about 52 and 54 if you guys want to play along at home.
And this is another part that, like, people who are highly skilled at it will, like, Danger set a 52 to 54 second time. Like, that's not super easily achievable unless you are pretty experienced with this race. Beginner runners will commonly not even get below a minute. So it's like another one of those little things that experience gives you a pretty good time save.
Yeah, and considering it's like separated from the main game, you wouldn't really think that something like the Bound Bowl is like a big time saver, but yeah, like Curvis said, it's a matter of, 10 seconds in some cases, so it really does make a difference and kind of adds up.
It's just like a surprising amount of technical precision involved in this race that might not be entirely obvious. Just hitting all the optimal parts of the slopes to bounce, and you can actually, depending on how lightly or heavily you press the button to bounce, you'll like bounce higher or lower, and you gotta like manipulate that to your advantage to get the right angles and stuff to go as fast as possible.
And we did get a 52.88, which is 0.01 off of Poverty Chat's guess. GG's.
52 is a really good time for that. I think the best times that people ever get in like full game speed runs is a 51, like a high 51.
Maybe have seen a 51 like once or twice in like a World Peace or a Darker Side run before.
Yeah, that's pretty rare, but yeah, generally 52 to 54 for a high level runner is pretty common.
Now, this kingdom is actually kind of unique. Snow Kingdom in general, before World Peace, is an extremely slow place to be. Like Kerbis said, a lot of the moons are kind of hiding in those hallways. They're all attached to a story moon. It's very slow. So we leave a lot of the moons for after Peace because now that you can see the sun is shining, it's a nice place to be. There's a lot of fast moons kind of hanging out in the outdoor portion of Snow Kingdom. So we're just going to go about getting all of those.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of something we glossed over, but basically every kingdom, whenever you collect a multi-moon, it typically will unlock more moons that are available to collect in the kingdom. So that's what happens here. Once he collects that Boundable multi-moon, there's a lot of stuff that spawns, and they're much faster than anything you could get before achieving Peace.
All right. Now that is another element of RNG that exists in the run, this little fishing mini game here. There are two different bites that fish can do. One is like a really solid hard bite, and the other one is just like a tiny little nibble. The fish will only come up on the hard bites, and you don't always get the hard bite on the first try, so I got kind of lucky there.
And the way you know is with rumble on your controller, so it's like you can't tell just by watching if it's going to be a light or a heavy bite.
Now this trick, if you watch Super Mario Odyssey speedruns, very prevalent in the any percent route. It was considered to be the hardest trick for a very long time. It saves about 8 or 9 seconds optimally in that route, which is why it's so valuable. In World Peace, it saves quite significantly less, but I thought I'd throw it in just for a little bit of flair.
Gotta provide the swag.
Yeah, you get bonus points for swag in Super Mario Odyssey speedrunning.
Yeah, I think that's, what, a 1 or 2 second time save for World Peace.
And it's kind of neat to see it in a different perspective, because when you see it in any percent, it's like still blizzarding out. You haven't achieved World Peace, so you can't really see what's going on, but it's clear as day, and you kind of get to see what's how the jump actually works. So.
And now, I don't know about Dangers, but coming up, Seaside Kingdom has my absolute favorite boss fight.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one.
It's one of those things where I kind of hated it early on because I didn't understand it, like understand how to do it well, do it quickly, but I think the fast strats are some of the most fun and coolest looking things in this game. So basically Seaside Kingdom, you can kind of see the guy sitting on top of the glass in the center of the kingdom. That's who we're gonna fight. But to get him off his little perch, Dangers has to go collect these moons by these little buttons, and when he ground pounds the buttons, it'll uncork one of the fountains you can kind of see in the background. And once all 4 of them are uncorked, they all hit our friend perched at the top, and he gets angry and then he wants to fight. So this whole route is based around just going around uncorking these fountains, essentially.
And we're going to make valuable use of our little Gushin friends here. Gushins are a very quick way to kind of zip around the kingdom, and like we said, story moons constitute quite a few of the moons in this kingdom. You need 10 moons to leave, but 7 of them are story moons. So it's actually, there's not very many moons that we need to go out of our way for. So most of this World Peace route is just going around the kingdom as fast as possible, uncorking all the fountains, and then moving on.
Yeah, it's probably the most story-dense kingdom in the run, other than, like, Cascade.
Unlike unlike Snow or unlike Sand, there's nothing you can really do to skip any of this functionality, so we do kind of have to go about getting it all.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. You never know.
But yeah, I mean, Seaside is so open, there's not really, like, there's nothing that you can clip into that would be of any use. So you kind of just gotta play by the rules here.
Which is totally fine by me, because it's a very scenic kingdom, and it unlocks the best boss of all time, so...
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Seaside, just aesthetically. It's always been one of my favorites in this game. The early cutscene.
Gotta love it.
Sometimes those cutscenes like take forever to actually be skippable for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure it's variable, like the load time or whatever, to be able to skip the cutscene. Because sometimes it definitely seems like I can skip it right away, and other times it takes forever. Might just be placebo, but it's what it seems like in my head.
Don't really know what causes it either. I feel like I probably mash just always, but it doesn't always work.
Alright, so this is the fourth and final button, and this is what's going to cause our friend, and I'm not making this up, I swear to you guys. His full name is Brigadier Mollusk Lancer III, Dauphin of Bug Lane. That is his full canonical title.
And it's fantastic. I don't even think you could make it up, even if you tried.
No, I wouldn't be able to make that up. I'm not creative enough to come up with a name like that. But yeah, that is actually the name of this guy, and he is mad.
I mean, his head is on fire. Like, that's how much more mad can you get? So basically, this fight revolves around knowing exactly where he's going to show up next. So I am doing my best to kind of beat him all the way around. He does a lap around the kingdom. I'm doing my best to kind of beat him to every spot that he's going to stop. And that's going to obviously be as optimal as possible. But it just so happens that beating him to this very final spot over here by the hot springs has a little bit of a unique quality to it as well.
Yeah, just by hitting him right away, it's gonna sort of force him to clip through this wall. And what that does is it avoids him swimming all the way around the back side or the front side of the hot spring here. So he kind of just goes through the wall, and then you can finish him off right there.
And we honestly have no idea why it works like that, but we did discover that it does work, so we just kind of run with it.
Yeah, and like he said, as long as you pretty much beat him to his spot, you'll get that clip every single time, basically. You just gotta know where he's gonna stop and start spraying before he gets there.
That is another multi-moon that we need to achieve world peace. So with that, we will be heading out on our way to the next kingdom. Now, the next kingdom is a love or hate kingdom for me. I love its aesthetic. I love everything. I love the sub-areas that are in it. As a casual, this is probably my favorite kingdom. As a speedrunner, though, it is a little bit more frustrating. Just, you'll see why. You'll see why.
I'm gonna be real, this kingdom, I have a hate-hate relationship with it.
Just straight up double hate on the Luncheon Kingdom.
It was definitely one of my least favorite when I was playing casually, and it has not treated me any better as a speedrunner.
Now, Snow and Seaside, there was a kind of a fork in the road. We could have chosen one or the other. Going one or the other doesn't really make much of a difference. They are both kind of smaller kingdoms as well, so there's not really any midway boss for either of them. Snow did have one, but we kind of just skipped it. But see, when we get back to Luncheon, Luncheon is another rather large kingdom, and there is one brutal that we have to fight. There's also kind of a midpoint with a multi-moon attached to it.
It's the most difficult multi-moon in the game.
By far.
You guys will see exactly why once we get to it.
So doing a little bit of a tricky jump to get up that salt pile. The game, I don't think you're really supposed to get up there until later on in the game, but the moon is still there, so we can do a set of very tricky and precise jumps to get up there.
Yeah, I don't see it referred to by this name very much anymore, but like early on in the speedrun life of Mario Odyssey, that jump was called cheeseless, because like once you do certain story moons, like the first multi-moon I think it is, there's a block of cheese that appears that you can kind of stand on and jump up that wall much easier. So like the act of jumping up there without the cheese block, we just called cheeseless.
Yep. And then we have a little bit of a refight with Spirit here. The only difference is that the arena is larger and also rectangular shaped. That doesn't make any difference to the way that we do it, but you know, that's how this game creates difficulty, I guess.
And they reward you less and less every time you fight a brutal.
It's a bit of an
start
interesting
off
thing.
In like Sand Kingdom, fighting Harriet, you got a multi-moon at the end. Same with Lake Kingdom, same with Wooded Kingdom. Then once you get to like the fight that we skipped in Snow, you would only get a single moon for it. And the same with the Spirit fight right there. You only got a single moon for it. Then in Bowser's Kingdom, you have to fight 2 brutals just to get a single moon. So I guess they run out of goodies to give you as the game progresses or something.
Must be. Something like that.
There's a 1 multi-moon per brutal quota. Bowser doesn't trust them with any more.
Now I am on 1.0, which is the original version of this game. It does actually have, you'll see this cage that I'm opening up with this switch here. There is actually a glitch that I can do to clip directly through it, but I require a turnip that you pull out of the ground to do it. And it just so happens that there's no turnips readily available in the area, so I'm just going to open this up the regular way. In any percent, there are some turnips kind of conveniently placed right where you are, so you can kind of just use those turnips to make the trick happen.
Yeah, so you guys gotta brace yourselves. We're quickly approaching that most difficult multi-moon in the game. It's gonna blow you away with how hard it is.
Yeah, just got a couple of quick moons to gather along the way before I make my way up there.
Yeah, so basically the entire route is just, in every kingdom you have a point A, which is the start where you get dumped off with the Odyssey, and a point B, which is the first multi-moon of the kingdom, and you're just gonna grab any fast moon that's along the way without going too far out of your way. So watch the technique here. He's got to shake twice, skip a cutscene, do a very tricky single jump cat bounce into this multi-moon, and there you go. Most difficult multi-moon in the game.
I barely made it out alive, to be honest. I'd like to thank my family. At home, they're always cheering for me.
Also, side note, Luncheon Kingdom, while it might be one of the worst kingdoms in the game, it does have the best moon color.
It certainly does. You cannot argue that. And now we get sent back to the Odyssey, but our final destination is essentially getting back up to the top of the mountain again.
Yeah, but this time you got to go around the other side of the kingdom because there's no giant slab of meat to carry you to the big pot anymore. So you got to go around the back way. And there's a cannon that will launch us up to the giant pot of stew for the boss fight, which I'm not memeing this time, is actually like one of the more difficult and annoying boss fights in this run.
An absolute unit of a boss fight, if I do say so myself.
It's the one that Dangers was referring to earlier with the unfortunate hitboxes. And this is a much worse offender of that than the Mecha Wiggler was.
Certainly.
Yeah, this is another one of those story moons that just basically allows you to progress through the kingdom. I don't think you're able to do the boss fight without collecting this moon.
And now this story moon kind of opens up a section where you have to kind of go around the mountain trail. But we're just going to do some movement to skip all that because it's slow. Oh, and I'm also going to just do the bonk there. That's alright. These things happen.
Yeah, if you've ever seen people do the Koopa free running minigame, in this game. This is kind of the route that Cooper free runners would take, and it's actually one that is useful in a normal speedrun as well. And here we go, Cookatiel. This is... I don't even know what to say about this fight. I might regret something if I talk too much, but basically these hitboxes, like every hitbox possible in this fight is terrible. It does not work in your favor.
No, to this boss's credit, this is one of the few bosses that you can kind of break the script on, break the sequence. You go underneath this boss and hit him in the belly, and that's going to force him to kind of go to his puking stage a little bit faster. But, like Kervis said, the hitboxes are brutal. Like, I actually got them on the first try there, which is kind of a miracle, to be honest. A lot of the time, the game is not so nice. And the hitboxes on these lava platforms, not so nice. The hitboxes on the boss's face, also not so nice. You can see why this boss can be rather frustrating.
Yeah, especially that third phase where it's so easy to fall through the smaller platforms of puke. Yeah, that is a food safety violation. You're not wrong.
Yeah, I don't know what this soup is made out of, but it certainly is not very appetizing after the horror that we've witnessed here.
All I know is if you guys are looking for a post-marathon meal, you do not want to be eating this stew. Go somewhere else.
Not.
Go to IHOP. I think they're open this late.
But with that, we've exterminated the evil in this kingdom. We've gotten rid of the terrifying cooking bird. And that's all we need from Lunch Kingdom, so we're on our way.
So, speaking of auto-scroller bosses...
We have approached the penultimate auto-scroller boss in this next kingdom. Now, this game, again, does a little bit of a debate, I think. It says, oh, now is the time to face off against the evil Bowser. We're finally going to his homeland, and we're going to take him down once and for all.
You know, it kind of debates you twice. In this.
It does.
First, I think you're going to Bowser's Kingdom, and then once you actually go to Bowser's Kingdom, you don't even fight Bowser there. Sorry, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, you don't even fight Bowser there, and it's not even the last place you go. So this here, my first playthrough, I was, to put it simply, I was monka-gigaing, because I was like, am I still in a Mario game? I'm not entirely sure. But this here is the Lord of Lightning, and as intimidating as he looks, he's really quite the pushover.
You want to know the one thing that this dragon actually reminds me of? Like, a lot of people say Dark Souls, but my mind goes somewhere else, and it's really funny to me. But I think of the dragon from Shrek.
Oh my god, yes! That's so funny. I was actually just watching that movie. It's a good throwback. The first two movies are excellent. The other ones are what make the meme what it is today. But
yeah. See, I think it's a crying shame. I think Shrek has been memed into oblivion, but like, especially the first movie, it's like actually a classic comedy movie.
oh, yeah.
I love Shrek. But yeah, that's what this fight reminds me of for some reason. I think it's especially just like the innocent, pleading pose that the dragon takes once you defeat it.
Yeah,
Just kind of laying there helpless, like,
just
I don't know,
that to submission. Yeah, totally. And yeah, so if you haven't gathered, this fight is extremely linear. There are some things that we can do to speed it up, essentially taking a damage boost on the dragon's nose so that we're right up next to these swords and we can pull them right out of his face. But aside from that, it's just waiting for the phases to be over. There's no way to really skip to the next portion of the fight like there was in the luncheon fight. We just kind of have to wait and pull the swords out as fast as we can.
And yeah, you don't have to call PETA. We didn't kill the dragon or anything. You can see if you come back, its eyes will be open. It'll just be kind of sitting there, all tired looking.
Yeah,
but
worn out.
Yeah, it was just like a fun play date. Taking a nap now. But yeah, the dragon is well and good. No worries. Just kind of claim the multi-moon to power the Odyssey back up.
And the dragon is all we need to achieve world peace in Ruined. There are a couple other moons hiding around here, but that's all. That's it. We can power up the Odyssey and make our way to the next kingdom. Finally going to Bowser's.
And Bowser's is another kingdom that's going to be exactly the same as any percent. Actually, the rest of the run from here on out is exactly the same as any percent. Just because, I guess, like, the beginning and the end of the game, they force you to do the story stuff just for, you know, whatever reason. I guess it makes sense at the end of the game because, you know, there's, like, an overarching story that they still want you to follow. But, yeah, this kingdom, you have to collect all the story moons. There's no way to skip any of them. It could technically, like, physically be possible to skip some of them, but it's just, like, if you don't collect the first one, then the second one won't appear. If you don't collect the second one, then the third one won't appear, and so on. Basically, the final fight becomes uncompletable unless you collect all the prior story moons.
Exactly.
I think Bowser's Kingdom would be a lot scarier in a speedrun setting if that weren't the case. If we had to jump across all these walls, across these death gaps.
We would definitely be doing some sort of crazy platforming maneuvers, and we still do, to be fair. I kind of like Bowser's Kingdom because it kind of throws at you a bunch of platforming sections that you've been practicing and doing throughout this entire game, and throws them into these little bite-sized chunks. And it's a very, very satisfying kingdom to run. Also, another thing to notice about this kingdom is that, unlike the other kingdoms, it doesn't really give you a clear moon count on what you need to leave. And that's because this game is trying to debate you again into thinking that this is the last place you're going to go. But it isn't, because Bowser's going to actually throw his final Mecha Brutal at you, and then run off to the moon by himself with Peach, where you kind of have to track him down one final time. So, because there's no moon count, you just have to intuitively know that you need 2 extras on top of the story moons before you're allowed to leave. So you will see me grab 2 extra ones along the way.
Alright, so since Wooded Kingdom, what are the things that we've missed that Bowser was trying to steal from each kingdom?
So, I don't think he actually does steal anything in Metro, does he?
Metro, it was like the power, I think. Basically.
Probably that.
Snow Kingdom, I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. I don't remember.
I think Seaside was just like the pure water, and Luncheon was the stew.
Luncheon was the pot of stew, yeah, for sure.
I'm telling you, you guys do not want to eat that stew, but for whatever reason, Bowser wanted it. So.
He wants it for his wedding. I think Snow might have been the wedding cake.
Maybe.
If I had to guess, it'd probably be that.
Yeah, I think that covers all of them, because obviously Bowser's trying to steal something from his own kingdom.
And all of these components together, one very precious artifact from every corner of the world, makes for the most fabulous wedding on the moon, no less. And now we enter this refight here with the Brutals. Of course, we haven't seen Harriet since the Sand Kingdom. She had a ponytail that she was throwing bombs at us with. This time she's got pigtails, which does kind of intensify this fight a little bit. It means that I have to jump off to the side if I want to get those optimal bomb throws in.
Yeah, so this is what I was saying. You actually have to fight 2 Brutals now just to get a single moon. They're making it more difficult as the kingdoms progress. And Topper here, he's just... it looks normal. He only has 3 hats there, but he goes a little wild in this fight.
Yeah, things get out of hand very fast for Topper here.
It's those tall stacks.
He's all about them stacks.
Aren't we all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as usual, these silly rabbits proving not much of a challenge for Mario.
And yep, getting the 1 story moon from all of that nonsense. But this is going to open up the way to the main courtyard and allow us to continue onwards into the main courtyard and past it into our final fight here.
Yeah, it's like Dangers was saying. He's gonna collect one more moon here. After you would do the boss fight, the final boss fight in this kingdom, the normal dotted circles in the top screen would show. But obviously we know already how many we need, and that's 8. So he has 5 now, and then there's just going to be a multi-moon at the end of the boss fight. And that's all you need to leave Bowser's Kingdom.
A little bit of a tricky jump there. After coming out of that pipe, the camera kind of wrestles with you. There's not really anything you can do to control the camera there. So I kind of have to make that jump completely blind. But we're safe, we're sound. Now we just got to climb up this big wall.
Use our bird friend to scale it.
Pokio is one of my favorite captures in the game.
That's something I have a love-hate relationship with, is the Pokios. But this is going to be one of the more technical fights in the game. So if you're unaware, normally what you'd want to do is... it'll spit out these bombs, but it'll also spit out Pokios, and you would capture the Pokio, poke the bombs back at the legs of the Rude, and climb on top with the Pokio after knocking it down. And you would have to do that 4 times, but basically Dangers climbed up the side of the leg and just ground pounded the first bubble, so taking it out with the Pokio. And from here, you can kind of stay on top, and then in between each phase, the Robo-Brood is going to try to throw you off the top, but Dangers is just going to cat bounce back, and like every time that shockwave effect happens, he gets his cat bounce back, so he can just stay on top of the Robo-Brood for the entire fight, and that was actually super clean. Pretty much perfect fight there.
There's a couple of different ways about going about hitting all the bubbles. A lot of, like, the beginner strategy is to kind of leave that top one for last because it's the easiest to hit. But there is a little bit of an optimization where you can leave that side bubble for last and just dive directly onto it, into a spin pound, and finish it off really quickly like that. But yeah, as far as that fight goes, that's basically exactly what you want to see.
So yeah, now after all the baiting that this game tries to do, finally have worked his way through all of it, and we'll get to go to the last kingdom of the game. No moons to collect anymore. Just gotta go. We have a date with Bowser.
Yeah, we have to crash a wedding.
Input comment about Mario being the true villain here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Robo-Brood fight is definitely like, I think as a beginner of this game, since you have to do that fight in every category essentially, it's like pretty important to become good at it, no matter what you want to run in this game. It's like the most satisfying thing in the world to do it fast for the first time and just like feel yourself becoming consistent at it. Because that's the kind of thing that, like, those fast strats, they save so much time. That fight is like a multiple minute affair if you do it the intended way.
Exactly.
It's very slow. Look at this, we're drawing more parallels to Shrek. Shrek also crashed a wedding.
They're not.
Mario Odyssey is basically Shrek 5 confirmed.
Oh my god.
So those jumps were not a mistake, those were intended. Jumping to the side like that. Basically in this game, this works everywhere, but it's most prevalent on the moon because of the low gravity. If you jump at an angle, sort of, you get more distance on your jumps. So by doing it here, you're able to triple jump across that gap entirely just by angling your jumps correctly.
Now this game wants you to go into the cave that we just passed there, but discovered on basically day 1 of this game being run. Oh, and I'm gonna dive off, I think. That's good. That's fine.
Oh no.
Basically discovered on day 1 of this game being run is something we call Moon Cave Skip. So, essentially, what is possible here is a jump that I'm trying to do we're going to be basically just like using that Sphinx's head to gain a little bit of extra height and get up and over the top of the cliff. It is a very punishing thing to miss because you get sent back all the way to the Odyssey, unfortunately, but we're going to set it up again here. But
I hope
of
you
course,
guys like Moon Kingdom.
Yep. Moon Kingdom is fun. Moon
We
Kingdom
love
is
it
great.
so much, we're gonna do it twice.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is, we could probably miss this the same way that I just did 5 or 6 times and still be ahead of doing the Moon Cave. That's just kind of how this trick works.
Yeah, that's another thing that just is like a multiple minute affair. I think it saves... I'm not sure actually how long the Moon Cave takes to do without collecting moons along the way. Probably at least 2 or 3 minutes though. And there is actually another fight in there that you would have to do with the same boss that you saw in Cascade Kingdom, the Mama Brood. Yeah, now that's the giant ring that Bowser stole from Sand Kingdom. He's fighting, I don't know, trying to put it on Peach's finger, I guess. Not really sure how that works. It's a pretty big ring. Peach is a delicate, frail creature with dainty fingers. So I'm not sure what the plan was there.
Yeah, Peach was having none of it, though.
Peach can hold her own, you know? They invited her to Smash Bros. For a reason. Yeah, this fight, it's essentially the same thing as in Cloud Kingdom, but Bowser's gonna throw some fire on the in-between phases.
And I would argue that this is probably even easier than the Cloud fight because you have a lot more time to kind of set yourself up for grabbing Bowser's hat back really fast. He
Yeah, that's
does
true.
put this intermediate phase in where he's throwing fire, but as you can see... Oh, just kidding. I debated myself there a little bit. I was going to say the hitbox is extremely small. I'm taking these tiny little jumps over top, and it's not very threatening. It looks a lot more threatening than it is.
Yeah, the hitbox of that fire is basically just a scan line on the floor. It's kind of funny. Not sure why they elected to make it that way, but that's how it is. Yeah, this game, kind of cool that once you do the final boss fight, the game isn't quite over. And I'm not gonna lie to you, when I did this for the first time on my first playthrough of coming down and capturing Bowser and becoming Bowser, I kind of popped off a little bit.
Oh, I popped off.
That was exciting to me. I don't know. Like, I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. And it made me really excited when it happened.
Yeah, there was a part of me that kind of saw this coming, but at the same time, still a very exciting way to kind of finish off the game. Bringing all 3 characters together, you can see that Peach is actually like perched on Bowser's shoulder as we escape this exploding moon. The weirdest part about this whole sequence for me, and maybe a little bit of a spoiler here, but, you know, the moon looks like it's in dire peril and it's about to self-destruct, but when you escape, you arrive on the surface of the moon and everything's just fine. I don't really know what that's all about.
Hey, apparently inanimate planets can have internal existential crisis, just like us.
It's a metaphor for mental health.
Just gonna throw a lot of fireballs, run around as Bowser for a couple minutes, and this is it. This is the final stretch of the game. Just one more little room to go through, knock down some pillars to break down a center block with a zip line that will carry our hero and his, I don't know, what would you call Bowser in this state? He's like Mario's horse or something. I don't know.
I don't really know what to call him in this situation. Aside from, you know, enslaved, captured, but...
He's kind of helping Bowser because they're not leaving him behind to die. But he's also kind of using him to his advantage. I don't know. It's a moral gray area, to say the least.
Right. And we are on the final platform, busting away this final block here. And as we enter the wire, time is going to be essentially when we shoot directly out of it. Just a moment here. Time. Now, By my timer, it does look like I lost about a minute doing that failed moon cave skip. My PB in this category is a 116 flat, so that actually would have come probably within about 15 seconds of that PB had I not done that. So overall, a pretty good run, pretty good showcase for this category. So
And Dangerous is also like only a few seconds off world record in this category, so not only would have been close to his PB, but would have been close to world record. So really, really good run for a marathon, especially.
yeah, an extremely fun run. You know, anybody watching at home, obviously you're a little bit interested in speedruns in general, and Mario games and Sonic games in general. But if you have not really tried a speedrun game, I would probably recommend Super Mario Odyssey because it just has such an excellent learning curve. It is extremely easy to get into. There's lots of learning to like stuff out there for you to use if you need it, and a huge community dedicated to making this game what it is. Big shoutouts to the community, everybody who puts effort into routing this game and into making it such an inviting place to kind of learn how to get into speedrunning. Shoutouts to Child's Play Charity for kind of being the focus of this event, and Big John, of course, for being the host and having me on to do this run. And last but not least, shoutouts to Kerbis for joining me on commentary today.
My pleasure.
It has been a slice, and I hope you guys come check out my channel as well, ddangers. I do runs of this category as well as a lot of others. So, yeah, if you like Super Mario Odyssey, that's the place to go. And again, thank you for having me on.
Oh boy, how about that stuff, you all? I tell you, man, fantastic job by ddangers there, showing you how to do that world peace category. Yeah, a little bit longer than 80%, but always a fantastic category. Had a lot of Odyssey offerings, you know. You had Bayleaf's big old darker side run, and then we had the 80%, so we kind of split right in between there. Well, I guess it's not really in between, but you know what I'm saying. Alrighty, so we have one more game for the first day of the event. We have coming up Sonic R. We have Sonic R performed by Master Kirby, who is back at it for his second run today. Did some Sonic CD a little earlier. Now we're going to do some Sonic R. And of course, thanks to the generosity of all you knuckleheads and you're spreading the word about the event. We also did meet the incentive. In fact, we met both our incentives: the Sonic 2 Game Gear Best Ending category, as well as karaoke percent for this game. So Master Kirby is going to be showing you all Sonic R for the GG. GameCube. Yeah, so we're doing 100% no out of bounds Sonic, so we're going to have Super Sonic, and all of the songs will be sung by him as well. I'm sure you'll all be singing along at your houses and all that good stuff. All right, so stay tuned. We're going to get ready and get him set up for the final run of the first day of the event. Remember, we'll be back tomorrow starting at 9 a.m. Eastern, which is just under 8 hours from now. Rip me, rip a lot of us. All right, so be back in just a few moments. We're going to get him all set up.